Welcome back. Now, amid frosty ties between India and Canada, Justin Trudeau continues to give a free run to Khalistani elements. 3 incidents show how Khalistani extremists have been getting a free run in Canada. First is Brampton. The devotees there, including women and children at the Hindu Sabha Mandir, were targeted by Khalistani supporters. Videos show a group of men wielding sticks and attacking devotees outside the temple. And what's even more shocking is that the Canadian cops were seen shielding the Khalistanis while the devotees were detained. In Surrey too, Hindu temple was targeted. In Brampton again, the consular event to provide services to Indians and Canadian citizens was targeted. Even India has condemned these attacks and has demanded action against the Khalistani extremists. Canadian MP Chandra Arya has also condemned these attacks, saying that the red line has been crossed by the Khalistani extremists. He even hinted at the infiltration by Khalistanis in the Canadian agencies, which goes on to in fact only indicate that they're also sort of wielding much influence on the Canadian law enforcement, something that has also been echoed as far as High Commissioner Verma of India is concerned. He also said that it is not like the problem is the Sikh diaspora, but it is these troublemaking Khalistanis who have now been given much weightage by the Trudeau administration, and to a great extent even the opposition, which is headed by Pierre Poilievre, has not really condemned the Khalistan extremism. That is the big question we will in fact be indulging into. That is the Khalistan extremism now getting a free hand from the Trudeau administration. We bring you a quick report before. All right, former federal Liberal Cabinet Minister of Canada, Ujjal Dosanjh, joins me live. Mr. Dosanjh, thank you for joining in. Sad that we only get to speak in these dark times as far as India and Canada are concerned. But given that a place of worship has been attacked along with a consular camp, with similar attempts being made to disrupt camps in Surrey and Vancouver, what do you attribute this rampant and brazen Khalistan violence to?
Well, obviously, the Khalistanis have never been cautioned or warned not to engage in violence, extremism on the Canadian soil for the last several years. Mr. Trudeau has, by his silence, encouraged the kind of attitude that these Khalistanis have had. There have been threats and violence at the temples. There have been hateful speeches at the temples and at other demonstrations and processions. And the politicians have gladly attended those events and never said anything. And in fact, I would say that the politicians in Canada have suffered from what I called a collective amnesia about this issue for a long, long time, at least for the last 8 to 10 years. It was dying down, and then Mr. Trudeau came with his Khalistani friends. They were in his cabinet, they were around him, and situation actually went from sort of reasonable to bad, and now it's worse. And then, they have now issued mealy-mouthed denunciations of what has happened, and they have not named Khalistanis as Khalistanis. These people didn't sort of drop in from the skies. These are Khalistani extremists who intentionally and deliberately went to that particular temple in Brampton, and also a Sikh temple in Vancouver too, not just the temple in Brampton and Surrey. There was a Sikh temple in Vancouver, which
Yes.
was the target of these Khalistanis as well,
Yes.
which is where the consular officials were as well. And so the issue is here that the police have utterly failed to keep the peace, to warn these individuals, to prevent them from doing what they're doing. And the law enforcement response, from my point of view, has been an utter failure over the last 7 to 8 years. Do you think that if in this country somebody said we should expel all the Jews, that person wouldn't be prosecuted for hate speech? Why is Mr. Pannu
You,
being let go free when he says all Hindus should be expelled? I just think that, we now have reached a point in Canada where the politicians need to wake up. And this is not about India. This is about Canada. India has its own problems.
That's why I want to ask you. You're saying that this has been a failure of the Trudeau administration, but do you think that they choose to be this failure? Because, time and again, every time you and I have connected, you've talked about this is a result of years of mollycoddling to the Khalistan separatism issue. I know what you rightly said, that verbal condemnation is not enough, something that Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre have both done. But at the same time, they have not really called out Khalistan perpetrators for this attack. Why are Canadian politicians wary of openly condemning Khalistan extremism?
Because these politicians do not believe that use of the Canadian soil to dismember another country is a problem. For them, use of the Canadian soil to dismember India is fine. That's why they haven't called it out. And obviously that it's not my place to tell India what to do. I mean, India obviously needs to deal with its own issues and deal with the allegations there are about Niger, and deal with them seriously, because I believe that India has been somewhat less than serious in terms of dealing with Canada's concerns too, because this is the same evidence that's there from the U.S. U.S. provided the evidence to Canada. Canada passed it on to Mr. Modi's government, and they've dealt with these two things differently. Perhaps because Mr. Trudeau dealt
You're
with it
right, but
differently
the
too. I understand all that.
sincerity with which they call out for an investigation into Niger's killings, the same kind of sincerity is not exercised when it comes to incidents of hate crimes, which is being meted out to the Hindus in Canada. You can go ahead and cancel Diwali events, fine, but you cannot resort to this kind of extremism, violence. In fact, the RCMP is arresting Hindu devotees when these very devotees are being attacked in their own place of worship. What explains this discrimination, particularly towards the Hindus?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen the videos, but when police go to a particular place, their first objective is to actually try and keep the two parties separate, so that if there are people demonstrating there and people demonstrating at this end, that they not meet. If somebody tries to run to the other side and try and create a problem, that's their first obligation. So in doing that, they may have done something. I haven't seen the videos. I've been told that they had to wrestle people down to the ground to arrest them and to take them away. But
Yes.
but you but you make a point about why the hate crimes on Hindus have not been prosecuted. Well, that's a legitimate question, but my question is much larger. Why have these crimes against Sikhs by the Khalistanis not prosecuted? So Khalistanis don't always go to Hindu mandirs. I think they've gone because they're consular officials. Doesn't make it right, but Khalistanis always intimidate, beat up, and threaten people, Sikhs, in the temples. So much so that in many temples, moderates have just basically given up and gone away. They're not in power anymore.
I'd like to refer to this interview that you've just given. And in that interview to National Post, you say that Trudeau is sociologically and politically an idiot, and that he's an imbecile in terms of understanding how you build nations. I'd like you to explain why do you say so.
Well, perhaps not a very wise choice of words, but it conveys a certain feeling of anger that Mr. Trudeau has not dealt with these issues for a long, long time, and that he doesn't understand. He believes Canada doesn't have a mainstream. Therefore, we don't have really a culture. Therefore, you can be who you are. Therefore, you can have ghettos. Different people coming from different countries can live in their own little ghettos. That's a logical conclusion. And that's why, I differ with Mr. Trudeau. I think when immigrants come to this country, the politicians of this country must make demands on them and say, you must learn Canadian values. You must learn ways of how we do things. This is a different culture, different laws, different country. But Mr. Trudeau basically says, you come to this country, you can be who you are. And now we are actually, witnessing the results of that ignorance on part of Mr. Trudeau that he's displayed for so long.
Considering the Brampton attack has arrived a day after Panu threatened to attack Hindu temples, is this entire act a testament to the free hand that Khalistan extremism is gaining after downgrading of diplomatic ties between New Delhi and Ottawa? And is this just the beginning of darker times that we will see in terms of diplomacy between the two nations?
Well, that's my sense. I think what's happening is obviously the Khalistanis know that government of India and government of Canada are at loggerheads. Therefore, if they now have free reign in doing what they're doing. They've been doing these things for a long time, but to Sikhs, and now they're doing this at the Hindu temples, and that makes it somewhat different, but not very different. But they've never done anything about the Sikh temple violence. And, hopefully they'll do something about the violence at the Hindu temples.
Mr. Shiv Bhaskar, who's a representative of the Hindus, in fact had conveyed his disappointment and his sheer anger towards Pierre Poilievre when he cancelled the Diwali event. That's why I want to ask you, many have been pinning their hopes on Pierre Poilievre to come to power and perhaps rescue this drowning relationship between New Delhi and Ottawa. Do you really think that the problem is only Justin Trudeau, or does it go beyond that?
Well, obviously, Mr. Poilievre has shown that he can succumb very easily to pressure. Otherwise, there was no logical reason for him to cancel an event that's been going on for a number of years. I attended those events, Diwali events, when I was the MP. They were organized by the Conservatives, but they were attended by all of the MPs from all of the political parties, many of the MPs. But Mr. Poilievre has buckled under because there are Khalistanis in his caucus. And those Khalistanis have connections with Khalistanis in Mr. Trudeau's caucus. I wouldn't be surprised that they talked about this before this event was cancelled. But be that as it may, but I say to you that there is no political party today in Canada, federal political party, that's prepared to actually call a spade and name Khalistanis for doing violence at the Hindu temples and at the Sikh temple in Vancouver and make them pay the consequences of their actions.
Quickly before I let you go, Mr. Dosanjh, we've heard India's Ministry of External Affairs send a word of caution over there to Canada. But how much of an impact will our request have when they're talking about protecting the interests of all the Hindus over there?
Well, look, I mean, we all have our problems. Like India has its problems, we have our problems. Most of us are Canadian citizens, and therefore we are the responsibility of Canada. We should be, the Canadians should be asking the Canadian government to safeguard all of us in every possible fashion that we can do. India obviously would do what India would do, send a note, talk, make statements. Countries do that because there are many Indian citizens who live in Canada. I can understand their concern. But this is essentially an internal matter for Canada, which Canada has failed, miserably failed to deal with in the past. We shall see whether it deals with it properly now.
Perhaps that's why, there are voices coming in from New Delhi. But many thanks to you, Mr. Dosanjh. It was a pleasure connecting with you, as is always. Thank you so much for joining in on CNN News 18.